everyone. So this is a new thing for me because it's just me by myself with no Jim, and it's quite a serious one because often I do sometimes take the camera, but I'm usually playing up and being a bit stupid, teasing Jim. But I wanted to talk about my labour and my birth story because we mentioned it in the last video when we introduced Margot to everyone, and thank you for all your lovely comments. And I just felt it was really important to share a positive story because being pregnant is terrifying at times, and you're surrounded by kind of the Hollywood of like the film image of someone in labour like screaming and like gripping onto their partner in fear. And I was just, I don't know if anyone's pregnant watching this, I felt terrified. And there was a moment where my lovely sister-in-law Rosie sent me a video of when she was starting to have contractions, so nothing gory, she was still at home, but it really helped me to see this video of her, and she said I just felt empowered, I felt really good about myself. And there were moments when I felt scared. I thought back to her story and what she'd told me in this video of her just kind of doing her breathing, and I thought actually there are positive stories out there. So I'm going to give you mine and hope that perhaps in the same way that Rosie helped me, this might help someone else. I was induced on a Thursday night. We were watching television and I said to Jim, I can't feel the baby move, and I haven't felt her move for however many hours, and I panicked. And he was trying to calm me down, but once it was in my head, the more it kept going on, the more just really I started to feel really frightened, and I got myself really worked up. So we went into hospital. They were absolutely lovely, and they said, to be honest, I think I was 38 weeks at this point, they said, it's time for an exit plan. Would you like to be induced? And I was worried about her, so I said, yeah, let's do it. Jim had to go home because it was quite late at night. I was then admitted to the ward, and they used a pessary, what I was told is they try and keep things as natural as possible to mimic what would happen with your body, because the more more intervention that happens, the less natural it is, and your body can't cope with its own form of natural pain relief. So they try and go low and slow, which is what happened. I had all of Thursday night, nothing. Jim was allowed back into visiting hours, so we literally just hung out and watched TV on our laptops together on Friday in the ward. Nothing happened. So then they inserted a gel up there. Again, Jim had to leave, and then I was on my own in the night. Although I didn't feel like I was on my own, because I have my aunt, who's also married to another lady, so my aunts, plural, live in America, and their time zone meant that they were awake when a lot of this was happening to me, because it's not nice, really. It's not unpleasant, but it's not pleasant having someone put things up your bits, to put it as bluntly as possible. And it was really, and you're nervous as well, because at the same time I'm panicking, thinking I can't feel my baby, is she okay? So they're coming and checking up on you. You're not really getting much sleep, because every hour or so they're doing observations and checking the baby's okay. So I was a bit fractious and a bit on edge. So they were like my champions, because Jim would leave, and I know I could have bothered him, but if I wanted him to get his sleep and for him to rest, so it was quite nice that he'd go to sleep, and then the American side would take over, and I would like FaceTime them when I was in the hospital, or when it got too late and didn't want to bother everyone else, we would just WhatsApp and text, and they kind of guided me through. Where does that take me to? So Saturday, so I'd had the pessary, and then I'd had the gel induction, and then things started to move, and I was contracted enough that they could break my waters using this was the worst bit of the whole experience. This was the worst bit, because they also have to tell you what's going on, and they have to show you, and legally they can't obviously just do anything, but you're there like, just get it over with. And the midwife showed me this long blue kind of knitting needle and was like, this is what we're going to use. And I was like, no, please don't tell me. And that was honestly the worst bit, because after then it went quite quickly. My waters came out, gushed out. Literally, that was like what you'd see in a film. And yeah, then it really took off and I started contracting. But I get quite bad anxiety, and when I'm anxious, I vomit. And it seems to be a thing that my body does when it doesn't like pain, anxiety, fear, whatever it is. I vomit. So I actually did not feel a single contraction because I was being very violently sick. So at this point, I had been given quite a lot of saline and a lot of different anti-sickness drugs, and they just said, you can't carry on because you're being too sick, so we would like to give you an epidural. However, before that, I really felt like I was bossing it. We'd been doing some hypnobirthing, so I was like breathing in and out. I was on the birthing board, I was watching Disney Plus, I was there like, I've got this. But the sickness took over. So they gave me an epidural, and from then on, I just kind of sit back and relax. And I went from like 3 centimetres, 2 centimetres to fully dilated in about 4 hours, which is apparently very quick. But things got a little bit hairy. I had a temperature and they were worried about an infection, and they kept checking me for sepsis. Obviously I'd been awake by this point, I think I'd pretty much not slept for about 3 days, 4 days, so you're a bit like, am I here, am I not? Add in the drugs, you're really not sure if you're coming or going. So again, shout out to Jim he really advocated for me at this point, because I don't really at this point remember that much of what happened, but I know that every step of the way he knew what I wanted and how I wanted to proceed, and I knew that he had my back. And again, so I started pushing. I pushed for about an hour and a half. This is the bit that I really tell everyone. It felt like 5 minutes. And I think the pushing was the bit I was most frightened about. It felt like 5 minutes. I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been over an hour. It feels like I've barely done it. But unfortunately, Margot's head, and I think this is why I stopped feeling her move, she was kind of trapped like this to one side. So every time I pushed, it would move her head, but not move her down the birth canal. It just kind of moved her head to line her up. The midwife said the baby needs to be lined up like a torpedo to shoot out there. And she would line up, and then when I waited for another contraction, she'd just go straight back like that. So after about an hour and 45 minutes, they said, you are knackered, you can't do any more, we need to start thinking about what we do next. So the consultant came in and we had a discussion, or to be honest, he talked at me, I don't remember too much, but we had the forceps, and she came out, I think about 1 push, 2 pushes, but she came out really quick. But again, because it was quite hairy, scary, I tore from front to back, alongside having an episiotomy. So they had to stitch me up pretty quick and get her out and get her sorted, by which point my sickness kicked in again, because I was like, oh my God, blood, anxiety. So I was then puking, and she was taken to her dad for skin to skin, because she couldn't be puked on by me. And this is the bit I don't really remember that much, because actually whilst I think I've really glossed over this, but I lost 1.5 litres of blood, I think, and I was on antibiotics because they were worried about the infection. I hadn't slept. I was just all over the show, really. The one thing I would take away is I just felt like sheer joy, and when I'm thinking about it even now, I'm like, oh my God, women are so powerful, and I felt like so empowered by the whole experience. I felt like Jim had my back. I felt like the midwives were just super women. I felt like the consultant looked after me. Like there wasn't a single moment where I felt fear. I just thought my body can do this, and I didn't feel pain either, partly because I was obviously had an epidural, but also your mind and your body just takes over, and it was a really empowering experience. And then I had my daughter. It wasn't so great afterwards because that was the busiest night that the hospital we were in had ever seen. Apparently that was their world record for babies. So after I think I was stitched up, and it was about 10 minutes afterwards, and they said, we're really sorry, but you're gonna have to get out of this room and like you have to leave. And I had to like get up and walk, which wasn't so great. And then just they were so busy, they had a lot of people around, and it was just kind of a little bit chaotic. And that I found really hard because I think I had 3 further days on the ward, and Jim had to leave quite soon afterwards because she was born in the middle of the night. And once you're not in a birthing suite, I don't know what it's like hospital to hospital, but our hospital was, when you're not in the birthing suite, you then just revert to visitors' hours, and it was 3 a.m. or something. So he was off and I was just there in a daze like, what's going on? Which actually was a little bit, I wouldn't say traumatic, but it wasn't very pleasant. And I then had to have a blood transfusion, and that took them about a day, maybe a day and a half to realise. And again, I'd shout out to the hospital because they were all wonderful. It's no one's fault. It was just, they're having a baby boom. We've all got busy in lockdown, and they were a bit overwhelmed. So yeah, I had a blood transfusion and a few days in hospital. The ward is not the most pleasant because you've also got lots of people around, and Margot is pretty chill. She and still is, hopefully touch wood, stays the same. She's not a big crier. She only really cries for a little bit when she's hungry or wants something, and then it's kind of over with. Whereas a lot of the other babies around were quite distressed, and it becomes like dominoes. They all set each other off. So when you're there just desperate to recover, you need sleep, or like in my case, I was really low on blood. It was a little bit dangerous. And you're like stitched up, and you're kind of, I think I was then 5 days without a night's sleep. You're really just not sure whether you're coming or going. And having crying babies is just like, I just remember sitting there thinking like, I don't know where I am, what's going on. But we came home, and honestly, it's like sleeping in a 5-star hotel, coming home and like going in our own shower, being in my own bed, like wearing clean PJs, and it was just wonderful. And I look back, and my whole experience is, yeah, I feel empowered. I feel like I was looked after. I feel like I was cared for, and I just I don't know. I just feel like that was how it was meant to be. That was how she meant to come. She came into the world, and she's wonderful. She's just my favourite person ever. And yeah, I don't feel frightened. I would do it again in a heartbeat. So what else do I want to say? Thank you to anyone that watches that works in midwifery or obstetrics, is that the word? Works in hospitals delivering babies. You're all super women or supermen. Thank you to anyone that donates blood, because I needed 2 bags of it, so you've saved my life. And thank you for watching, and I hope that this little ramble of mine, might have to film it again and watch it back and go, what on earth have I said? But I hope that this little ramble of mine telling my story makes someone feel a bit more comforted that even when you can have all these things happen like I did, which isn't the most straightforward, actually you can come out after it thinking, wow, I am a superwoman, and the people supporting me are brilliant and just empowered, because it's not frightening, it's not scary, it's just amazing what your body can do. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope this helps.